Ex-Convicts of Reddit, did you find prison rehabilitating? Why or why not? What would you change about the system if you could? It was over 20 years ago in Canadian jail and minimum security. I was in for cultivation. The only thing mandatory for me was to go to a victims program so that I became aware of the harm I was causing by selling weed. I grew 4 plants at home for me and my brother and never sold any, and was ratted out by a friend of my brother because I refused to sell him weed for 2 reasons. A, he was 15. B, I didn't sell weed. The rest of the time was gym and cards. No fear of killings or fights, it was quite chill. 2 years for 4 plants that are legal here now. I wouldn't say it was very rehabilitating, though it did make me never want to go back. The worst thing they never tell you is that the COs can do pretty much whatever they want to you. You don't really have due process once you're inside. They can send you to solitary confinement whenever they want. Move you to the cell of someone who hates you and look the other way as you get beat up. And nothing will happen to them for it. Most of us were more scared of the COs than we were of each other. Though of course there were some good COs. Specific punishments and such vary from prison to prison. But the worst one I always dreaded was dog breath. If someone in our cell did something the CO didn't like, they'd come in, order us to sit with our backs to the wall, sometimes cuffed, and then they'd bring in their K9 officer to search the cell. Except, well, she'd search the cell, but spend a long ass time giving us a sniff over too, with her mouth right on our nose, panting heavily. It was absolutely foul. One guy cursed at a CO one day, and the next day our cell was searched, and he spent 15 minutes getting breathed and slobbered on by these dogs until he was gagging and retching. Complaining about the smell was a surefire way to get more of it. Nothing to do about it either. What are you going to do? Complain that they searched your cell? That'd be a good way to earn another K9 visit the next day. I haven't been to prison. Just in and out of juvie and jail for years. I don't know what was supposed to be rehabilitating. With a lot of the psychological help in juvie, they had high staff turnover, so there was never really consistency and progress. A lot of drug programming at both levels was just kind of like desk stuff. And really basic. I've been in a juvie class where another kid was correcting the teacher's info. Jails mostly have AA. Don't really like AA. A lot of hanging out and playing games and entertaining yourself. It rehabilitated some of my basketball skills, though some of that gets a little dirty for an actual game. It rehabilitated my ability to read books. After the first couple of times, going to juvie or jail never concerned me. Once you've figured the place out a bit, then you can just hang out. I have an uncle who had custody of me as a teen and he invested in me. He rehabilitated me. The system just took me and held me for periods of time, but he did the real work. He got me competent and consistent mental health care. We found a counselor who I connected with. I got my meds sorted out. I got consistent and competent substance help. I got a good education and directed towards a career. He got himself help in how to parent me. He got me to be a regular human by about 21. With greater funding and a change of attitude, I think the system could implement all of that stuff far more successfully. And I think that a big focus on juveniles and young adults would help too. And stop being obsessed with the act of locking people up. Did 2 years in 2002. 1 year in a for-profit regional jail and 1 year minimum security state prison. Not rehabilitating in the sense they made any effort to rehab us, but I did go straight to stay out of there. I was 18 and breaking into businesses for the thrill. Hardcore self-destruction. Thought my life was over until I saw how worse the other convicts were. The only services jail offers I get. Church and AA, so any rehabbing is done there. The discipline isn't like the military where they attempt to teach you honor or anything. It's just stand for count and clean your area once a day. I already had a get but took it again out of boredom. Prison is a lot better. Counselors teach community college courses and you have a job. Came out with 9 CR. This is not my story. This is my dad's. He went to prison 3 different times. But he only counts it as 1. Since he was only really out for less than a month each time he got out. Excepting the last one, of course. That's a different story. The last time he went to prison was at Folsom Prison near Sacramento. Yes. From the song. His cellmate was an older man. Though. My dad remarked that now. He's older than his cellmate was at the time. My dad was a bit of an arrogant prick and he was bragging about times he got away with some drug smuggling job. They were playing a game of chess and his cellmate just sighed. Boy. If you ever listen to a word I say. Listen to this. You're still young. You got your whole life ahead of you. Me? I'm here for life. Do you understand that? I'm never getting out of this prison. And when I die, they're going to bury me out in that graveyard with a wooden marker over top my body. I burned all my bridges and now there's no one left to give a shit when I die. You're still a kid. But I was your age when I was put in here. Stop being a f***ing dumbass and do something with your life if you don't want to be buried underneath a prison. Now move your f***ing piece so we can play some chess. Double quote. He was wrong about one thing though. I've seen my dad cry exactly twice in my life. The second time was last year when we visited Folsom Prison and my dad found out that his cellmate, the man who changed his life, passed away years ago. My dad cried over his death. And was probably the only person who did. If that man hadn't verbally slapped my dad across the face, I wouldn't have been born. So yeah. Prison can be rehabilitating. But I'm not sure if it's the system that's responsible. Not me. But my boyfriend spent 2 years in jail for drug possession with intent to sell. He just said he played cards and read a lot. No rehabilitation programs. This is a small jail in Florida. Not prison. The thing that sucks is that when a felon is released, they have so many limitations placed on them that are so difficult to overcome. It is very hard to find housing or a job that will take on a felon. Luckily he came from a well-off family. So he was able to live at a relative's house and work for his father's company. But if he came from a poor family, his choices would be extremely limited. Which is why so many felons go right back to committing crimes. They're trying to survive. I did 2.5 years, went in at 19, got out at 22. It was honestly the best thing that happened to me. I was on a downhill spiral and many of my friends living similar lifestyles are dead. Addicted or in and out of jail. It's been over a decade and I have a loving family, respectable career and working towards my masters. As an ex-con myself, California. Ironwood. I strongly implore every single ex-con on here to enter the world of construction. It's hard work but get into a union trade. Start as an apprentice is usually around the $20 range and you have full benefits. The most important thing is, no one gives a FCK about your record or past. Only that you work hard. I'm a superintendent now, 21 years in construction, but I started as the guy who cleaned up the site. I'm not humble bragging but I make over $125k and I don't even have a GED. Just work hard. And keep working hard. My immediate boss did 5 years in Pelican Bay, California. I'm carpenters union by the way and we can't find any apprentices now. The demand is nuts. No one wants to work labor though. I did a job a little while ago for a guy who got permanently disabled in prison. They hired me to create a roll and shower for his wheelchair. He was a real scary, badass motherfucker who didn't take shit from anyone, so the guards locked him in a cell with another guy like him, fully expecting one to kill the other. After the fight, they took their sweet time getting him medical attention. Well, he got out a paraplegic with severe brain damage. Needs 24/7 care and $1 million from the state. Unfortunately, because he is so severely disabled, he's got a lovely state board of directors that decides what he'll be spending his money on. I couldn't do a nice tile shower for him because vinyl panels are easier to take care of according to them. That's your millions of tax dollars working to rehabilitate a single person. Hard no. It was extremely overcrowded and for a week I had to sleep in a room with a maximum occupancy of 12. With 21 other men. Most slept on a floor. I got lucky enough to sleep inches from the clogged and unusable toilet. Room was about 85 degrees. Everyone I met and there was just a terrible person. And a lot of them were happy to be there so they could tell their homies they were locked up. My husband did 40 days. Not sure if you'd consider that long enough to be an ex-con. But the system absolutely did nothing to rehabilitate him. He was in work release. But when he was actually within the jail there were zero things for him to do. No programs. No counseling. Etc. What it did do was scare the shit out of him. Enough that he won't ever do anything that would make him go back there. It was horrible for him and he never wants to relive having no freedom. Sleeping on a rim. Rehabilitated? My first night in a juvenile facility they put me in a cell with a sheet of cardboard for my bed. They had 3 juveniles crammed in every cell that was designed to hold 1 kid at a time. We rarely left those cells because the officers couldn't be bothered to supervise us in the day room. Most of my days in that detention facility were spent in that cell listening to the sounds of the day room TV while the officers watched whatever instead of doing their jobs. This description D. I'm not a scholar or anything. But I kind of noticed that it was make or break. You had guys that would go once and never go back. Usually the more vulnerable people who just got caught up but still have support at home. Then there are the people who don't have any support. Prison becomes their home. They live with the boys and they can't go back, in their minds. Close bracket. When you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You can't see that you're in a tunnel. You just live in the dark. Okay, I was in prison in the 90s. It was f***ing awful. We were treated like SCM. We were hardly out of our cells and we did not have unlimited spends. You accrued $7.50 per week after sentencing. You were scared everywhere. And the only TV you saw was whatever the hardest mofo put on in association. 1 hour out of the cell which you tried not to fight but inevitably did. I was no soft touch but I did learn that prison life was not for me. When I got out I never re-offended. Prison was a lesson. A punishment. Something to actually be afraid of. Nowadays it's buttons with in-room TVs. Consoles. Tablets. Duvets. And inmates can order from Argos. They should rewind time on inmates and let them know what real prison is. It doesn't work. They take already asocial people, throw them in a social environment with other asocial people and expect them to get out and be socially acceptable. That place f***ed me up for years after it took 3 years just to think normal again. Not rehabilitating. Most traumatic experience of my life. I can't get a decent job just because I didn't have the money to go to trial. If you think you won't take whatever deal they throw at you, you have no idea the power they hold over you and how long, years, preliminary rounds can go and you have no rights because that isn't part of the trial. Then if you do decide to fight even though you are not convicted, the charges are put on you record as if you are guilty. So good luck not getting fired from the job you have and good luck finding a job even at Walmart as the DA can up your charges to whatever they want. Mine went from 1 misdemeanor to 2 felonies just because the DA wanted to. I even had the arresting asshats try to get the charges dropped back down to the original misdemeanor charge. I used to be all blue blood and now I am so cynical and treat cops like vampires. Don't invite them into your house or your life. My drinking buddy from my old circles did less than a year. This was mostly because of a long string of bad life choices and multiple run-ins with the law. Until he couldn't get away with it anymore and got a mandatory sentence. When he got out, he was changed. Going in he was more of a misguided. He came out with a full intent to keep on breaking into stores and shit. Not me. But my daughter's father, or my crazy ex, went to prison when he was 17, maybe 18, for 5 years. I don't know how much of his version of it I can believe. But I know he got into a pretty serious fight in holding before he was classified, again. I have never so much as been arrested. So I'm going from memory but I did see his record, and I was told he was classified as a violent offender after the fact. From what he told me, it was hell. He's seen a few people killed. And he also physically assaulted some as well. For his own protection? I don't know. I assume in the beginning. After his release, he found it somewhat rehabilitating. He mentioned people laughing when he told them he had to go home to work out. Or do something that was his regular schedule while in prison. I also assume that having some sort of structure helped him when I know his home life prior had none. But he's been back on his same bullshit for a while now. Again. I have no history or priors. So this is all based on my TYX still acting like a teenager. He is 35 and having no care about his actions or any possible repercussions. Never been to prison. Offended. etc. but thought I'd share this perspective. My Phil. Upon coming out of the army. Worked with some of the local prisons in my area creating work and training programs. His part in this was enlisting local businesses and colleges to help support inmates in learning new skills and then being able to adjust to life outside of prison upon release. This also included English and maths qualifications. The problem with a scheme like this is that it cost a lot of money and required a lot of goodwill from local institutions as well. He ended up leaving the job eventually, but I think it's important to know that there are people really trying to help, but the system is convoluted and help is expensive. People don't necessarily want their tax money going on this. It's a shame because so many people reoffend out of often having few other options. For context. UK. My husband served 8 years in Arizona Department of Corrections for 12 grand theft auto felonies. He got his get in there. Took college classes. And did an HVAC program. He got out and got into an industrial construction trade. Pipe fitting, and now 11 years later has a $90K a year permanent job at a copper mine. He says the worst thing about prison is the idle time and COs who think they are there to punish inmates. It did rehabilitate him. But only because he had something to look forward to when he got out. We met via pen pal. When he had been in for 2 years. Got married in there. And I waited for him to get released for 6 years. We just celebrated our 17th anniversary. Anyhow, had he not had a strong support system when he got out, he'd probably be back in there. What has kept me out is not the fear of returning to prison. It's that I don't want to put my family through it again. It was so much harder on them than it was for me. I can see why people that have nobody on the outside reoffend. Prison doesn't rehabilitate. For the most part it is used as punishment instead of a rehabilitation. You come out worse than you went in. It doesn't matter if you get rehabilitation. Because once you got a felony on your record, it's a life sentence. They throw that shit in your face every time you look for a job, so majority of us go back to prison cause we ain't left with too many other options other than to go back to what we used to do. The bills are high, what you get paid pennies, but if you're lucky you get a job flipping a burger or cut some grass, and that doesn't really make the cut, so sooner or later you're going to go back to the bullshit. It ain't everybody, but it sure as hell is for a lot, I'm just saying. I've been to prison 3 times for a total of almost 10 years. The prison itself isn't rehabilitating. It's a college for criminals. For me. The last time I went it wasn't even my fault, and that was what made me run out of gas. The drug criminal lifestyle is addictive in of itself. But you have to accept the bitter with the sweet. Cooperating wasn't an option, but that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I did 2.5 years with 1 year of parole and came home to nothing. A reputation for keeping it real is all you get. I stayed in the area for about a year and up and moved to another state because I felt myself getting pulled back in. I've been living happily ever after since. The only answer I have for rehabilitation is knowing that the self is the master of its fate and captain of its destiny. If I had to choose for political reasons, Bernie's prison rehabilitation plan is the only one that I ever felt. Never went to prison, but I served over 100 days in county jail. I was bad on drugs at the time I went in. I was on Xanax and heroin, and I stole a phone charger from Maya. Ended up spending about 2 weeks in county and was lucky enough to get into a 90-day rehab program. It was still the same jail. Still COs and surrounded by barbed wire, but I also learned a lot about addictions and how to stay sober. The FK'd up part about it is after you go through rehabilitation they offer you Suboxone on your last 2 weeks. I guess it works for people that aren't ready to stop getting high. IDK. They also offered Vivitrol, which gave me bad side effects. But I wasn't about to start taking Suboxone after being clean almost 3 months in jail. People still do drugs in jail. People fight. Things always find a way in and there's always a corrupt company. I just never wanted to go back to the horrible place again. Food tastes like ass. No medical care. I ended up on 3 years probation even after serving over 100 days. All for stealing a phone charger. I was never a thief. But Xanax. Don't do drugs and don't steal people. I've been doing a lot better since I've got out. Slowly rebuilt my life and got my own place. Car. License back. Fully legal, baby. It is what you make it. I turned a mess into a message. I did 2 years for drug trafficking and found it to be the opposite of rehabilitating. Things do vary a lot by camp, but in the many I was transferred to, the programs that were offered had so many hoops to jump through that you may as well not even try. In addition to the prisons not actually offering anything of value educationally, the majority of COs are on such a power trip. It creates animosity towards authority, leading to less respect for police and laws when they leave. Plus the racial tension that exists to some extent can impact individuals who are looking for acceptance in negative ways that they then carry with them once out. That being said, it has potential to be rehabilitating if you choose to rehabilitate yourself. It is the one time in life that so many of the sources of stress in regular life are eliminated and you can focus on you. There is time to read, write, work out, and plan for the future. If you take advantage of this, you can come out far better. But the system is not inherently tailored to help the inmates. It's all on the individual as to what effect it has on you. I was scared as shit being processed in cause I had only seen movies. Why and why not really depends on if I committed a crime. If I could change anything, it's the quality of the correction officers. Some great ones, but most times the only difference between them and the inmates is the uniform. Also, every single thing is about race. Every single thing. No. Quite the opposite, in fact. In Australia at least, they sometimes call prison jail synonymous terms here. Technical term is a correctional center. What's known in America as jail is called a remand center, the crime college. Never have I met so many potential contacts or learned so many potential methods to not get caught as I did in prison. Though I have absolutely no intention of breaching my parole or getting caught doing anything to get me sent back. I attribute that to my partner giving me an ultimatum. If I go back, she leaves me. I got one free pass because I had already been arrested and was on bail awaiting sentencing when we got together. I wasn't in there too long, only one weekend. But I think you can't just lock somebody up thinking that will solve the issue. The guards treated us all like SCM. You feel like you hit rock bottom and that there won't be any opportunities for you outside. They even told me, "See you soon, buddy." Cause everyone comes back later or sooner. No wonder people get incarcerated again and again. They don't feel like part of society anymore. I have not found it rehabilitating in many ways. Usually the exact opposite. Being surrounded by people who don't want to change at all and who plan how to do it better next time. What has stopped me has been what I have on the outside. I have children now. And the thought of leaving them and not being able to watch them grow is what scares me more than anything. What needs to be changed is, it needs to be more rehabilitation based. But people aren't going to change unless they want to. And I also think education should be free for all inmates. IDK about other states. But Wisconsin has stopped giving it to prisoners and makes you pay. Which for me wasn't an option. More programs to set you up on your feet when you get out. It's a money making machine in the US. They don't really care about you. Went to jail for a night for being drunk in public. And lem tell ya, the idea of being in a cold, super smelly airport terminal like room with a Buffy the Vampire marathon playing on 2 fuzzy ass TVs. And several crazies around you either screaming or trying to tell you about their criminal escapades for 8 whole hours is enough to prevent me from never f***ing up ever again. Never again. They gave me a toilet paper roll to use as a pillow. Y'all.